Welcome everyone to Daf Yomi 1 week at a time. This is Masechet Shevuot, and today is our fourth class where we will be reviewing Daf 21 through 27. Today's class is dedicated, this day of learning was dedicated by the Burkov family in loving memory of Lawrence I. Burkov. Yitzchak Leib ben Tzvi HaKohen Zichrono Livracha. So his memory should always be, and his neshama should have an aliyah. Okay, so let's pick up where we left off last week. On Daf 21, we were discussing the difference between two types of oaths. And we're going to see that this is actually a machloket. One is called a Shevuot shav, which means an oath that is, maybe we could say, meaningless, as opposed to a Shevuot sheker, which means a dishonest oath. So one opinion is that they're both the same in the sense that they both get lashes, or that they both, you bring a sacrifice for them if you did it by accident, meaning unintentionally, and for the past and for the future. But we'll see that this is actually a machloket. Okay, so now let's define the terms we just used. So Shevuot sheker is something that's false and empty, and it's about the past. That was Shevuot shav. Shevuot sheker is right, what we would call that you're lying, meaning you're trying to change the truth, and that is generally about the past. And then the Gemara says, no, it could even be about the future, right? I will do something, and then I don't do it. So then it seems that you spoke falsely. Or no, it's about the past, and you're basically, right, you're lying, right? You're saying this and this happened when it didn't happen. And the same thing with shav, with the other type of oath, is also in the past. If you remember, in the last Masechet, we learned that you do not get lashes for a transgression that doesn't have an action. Oaths are an exception to that rule, right? Meaning you just make an oath, you don't keep it, meaning even if you don't do an action, and you would still get lashes. Also, when if a person, other exceptions are if a person curses God, right? And again, this is based on the pasuk of, again, it's very fitting as we are right before Shavuot, right? We have in the 10 Commandments not to take God's name in vain. So that is what that's what we are talking about now as well. It says the word lashav, again, in vain, twice. So this is to teach us that you also get lashes for an oath that is a lie. And again, what does that mean? A dishonest oath. So it can't be that you're saying, I won't eat, and then you eat it, because that has an action, and that's obvious that would be liable. And it can't be that you're saying, I will eat it, and you don't eat it, because you don't get lashes because you didn't do anything, right? If you say, I will do something, and you don't do it, so because there's no action, you don't get lashes. Or no, that's not the reason you're not going to get lashes in this case, right? In this case, there's no way to give warning, right? We've seen this before, where if you have the whole day, right, if you say, I will eat it, so you can't tell a person, don't forget you have to eat it, or you're not going to eat it, right? There's no way to warn someone to not fulfill the oath, because all he has to do is not eat it. So that's problematic because you can't give a warning. Therefore, because you have the whole day that you could eat it, therefore you would not get lashes in that particular case. Rather, it must be speaking about the past, that even though there's no action, right, you say, right, yesterday I went to the movies, but you didn't. So it doesn't matter whether, right, you did an action or not. The fact that you lied about it, you will get lashes for taking that oath. Again, it's not just about lying, it's about taking an oath in God's name, right? I swear I didn't, right, or I did do something. Okay, let's say a person says, I won't eat this bread. And then again, I won't eat this bread, and I won't eat this bread, right? 3 times. And then they eat the bread. So then you're liable for one sacrifice, meaning we're going to see this today. We're going to talk about, can one oath exist on top of another oath? And we'll see in a minute that in this case, it cannot. Let's say a person says, I ate the bread, or I didn't eat the bread. So then you don't, again, and you say it multiple times, right? You don't bring a sacrifice for this, but you are going to get lashes. Or, that's one opinion, or according to Rabbi Akiva, he does bring a korban. He does bring a sacrifice. And we're going to see in a few minutes that there's a fundamental machloket. If taking an oath about something that happened in the past, are you liable to take, if you do that and you lied, so then do you bring a korban or not? Do you bring a sacrifice or not? So we'll see that is a machloket. Let's say a person says, I will eat this, and then he didn't. So he doesn't get lashes, but he does bring a korban, right? Again, you bring a sacrifice when you didn't, or when you transgressed by not fulfilling your oath. So now, does Rabbi Akiva, and again, we saw it before, and we'll see it again today, Rabbi Akiva says you're liable even if you take an oath from the past. So does Rabbi Akiva hold in every mitzvah that you're liable for eating? So last week we saw that Rabbi Akiva says that if you take an oath, I won't eat bread, and you eat even a tiny amount, Rabbi Akiva says you're liable. The sages say, no, you have to eat a certain amount, right? A kazayit, an olives amount, right? This is what's called a shi'ur, right? It's a specific measure. If you eat that measure, so then you would be liable. Rabbi Akiva says, no, even if you eat a little bit. So now the Gemara asks, when he says that you're liable for eating a little bit, is it only for an oath, or is it for any mitzvah that has to do with eating, or a prohibition against eating? If you ate a little bit, would you still be liable? So one opinion is yes. Rabbi Akiva would hold that for any mitzvah, even if you ate a little bit, you would be liable, or no, only here in this case of an oath. Again, and now from the other side, right, the rabbis who even if he says, I won't eat at all, right, again, if you specify, I will not eat any amount of this bread or anything, they will still say that the only way you're liable is if you eat, again, a kazayit amount, the amount of an olive, and even if you say the words even a little bit, it doesn't really mean a little bit. So our Mishnah seems to say that only in the case of oaths does Rabbi Akiva say, even if you eat a little bit, you would be liable, but everywhere else, you would have to eat an olives amount, a kazayit amount. So then the Gemara says, let's prove it from the case of a Nazir. If you remember, a Nazir, a Nazarite, someone who prohibits themselves from drinking or eating anything from grapes. So the Gemara says that you need wine plus a certain amount of bread to make it an olive's worth, a kazait amount, and Rabbi Shimon says, no, you'd be liable for any amount that you drink or eat. So again, does Rabbi Akiva hold like him everywhere or only here? So again, the Gemara concludes, no, only in the case of an oath will Rabbi Akiva say that only if you have a little bit, even if you have a little bit, you would be liable, but everywhere else, that would not be the case. Okay, Daf 22. If a person took an oath that they won't eat dirt, and then, right, if they ate any amount, so are you liable because, right, it's not food and you said you weren't going to eat any amount, therefore if you ate even a little bit, you would be liable, or again, you have to eat a kazait. Now, kazait, an olive amount, is only used for food. So if dirt is not food, which it is not, so maybe kazait doesn't apply here. Okay, so the Mishnah mentioned this. This is the only time, and again, the person speaks, and then if they, right, do not fulfill their oath, they would need to bring a sacrifice. But we have another case, right? We have a case of a blasphemer and a nazir, but they're different, right? The blasphemer, again, remember we said that he would also be liable, even though he's only using his words, right? But here the Gemara says, what's the distinction? Someone who curses God uses his words to do a sin. So that would be obvious that they would be liable. And a nazir, right, he brings a korban in order to permit him to eat, right? So therefore, this is a little bit different. Again, the oath is something that you took to either prohibit or permit something, but then your action is what is making you liable. Okay, there's a machloket if you only said, I won't eat, but if he says any amount, right, if he says, I won't eat any bread today, so then everybody agrees that you would be liable even if you ate a little bit, right? It's similar to saying, I won't even taste any bread, right? So again, the question is, if you say, I won't eat bread, does eat mean anything, or does eat mean a certain amount, which is a kazait? As we're going to see throughout this masechet, it's very important to recognize that that all of these that the Gemara is trying to say that all the right, whatever we say is very powerful, and we have to be very careful with the words that we use, and therefore we're going to. I mean, it sounds like we're splitting hairs, but the power is to the words. Yes, Zohar asked about Edim Zomamin. They are not connected to this in the sense that they are a special case where they get whatever punishment they were trying to give to the other person. But you're right that what's making them liable is their words. But it's a little bit different because their punishment is very unique. So good question. Okay, next, let's say the Gemara brings out the concept of a konam, which we haven't seen yet, but a konam is a way of taking upon an oath, and the Gemara is going to discuss it a little bit later on, right? The language of konam means any amount, right? Konam, this bread, basically means I will not have any of this bread. Right? Everyone agrees with konam that it means any amount. And okay, so again, and then the Gemara says an oath is different because again, there are two different korbanot that they're going to bring, and therefore oaths do not combine. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Okay, let's say right? Let's say another thing that someone, right? So we have the oath. We have a konam, which is a type of oath that makes something forbidden, and then we have what's called hekdesh. Right? Hekdesh is when you sanctify something, and therefore you cannot have any benefit from it. So let's say if you take a loaf of bread and you say this is hekdesh for everyone, and then someone eats it, so then they're liable for what's called me'ilah. Right? Me'ilah is when you misappropriate something that was sanctified. It's like stealing from God. If you made the loaf hekdesh only for yourself and then you ate it, so then only you are liable because if you made it hekdesh for you. Okay, let's go back to the dirt case, right? Let's say someone says, I won't eat dirt, right? Again, we said, is it a kazait or is it any amount? And the Gemara says, teku, we don't know the answer right now. Let's say you say, I won't eat grape seeds. Again, not very edible. Again, we say that it is a kazait because it's generally eaten with other things, or no, any amount because it's not really ever eaten alone, and therefore any amount would be liable. Let's say a nazir, again, he's not allowed to eat anything that has to do with grapes. Let's say a nazir says, I won't eat grapeseed. So now he biblically cannot eat a kazait of grape seeds. Therefore, if now he says, I won't eat grape seeds, it seems like this oath is about any amount, and therefore it is a valid oath. Or maybe he's thinking about the kazait, but wait a minute, it's already forbidden. Therefore, it isn't a valid oath at all, right? So you can see there's two different opinions. One is it's a valid oath. The other is that it is completely invalid. And now we're going to learn that if you take an oath to not eat non-kosher food, so then that's invalid. We're going to see, right now and then later again, in Hebrew, the phrase is mushba mihar Sinai, meaning we are, again, very appropriate for right before Shevuot, right? We were already bound by certain laws that were given at Har Sinai, right? And therefore, you can't take another oath to either not do a mitzvah or to do a mitzvah because we already have to do the mitzvah. And we'll see more about this as we continue today, right? So again, now, another principle is, so one principle is you cannot take an oath about a mitzvah. Number two, if you take an oath about a mitzvah, but you also include something that is permissible, right? So if you say, I take an oath that I'm not going to eat lobster and flounder. So lobster you can't eat anyway, but flounder you could eat. Because the oath is valid for the flounder, it becomes valid for the lobster as well. That's one opinion. Another opinion is no, it is not valid. Now, again, why does it matter? It matters because if you end up eating the lobster, are you liable for one sacrifice or two? Right? One, because it's usher to eat, it's prohibited to eat lobster. And two, because you now made an oath that you're not going to eat lobster. So that would be the practical application if it's a valid oath or not. Okay, next Mishnah. The Mishnah says, if let's say a person says, I won't eat, and then they ate and they drank, you're only liable for one sacrifice. We'll see why in a minute. Let's say you say, I won't eat and I won't drink, and then you eat and you drink, you're liable for two. I won't eat, and then you ate 3 different types of bread, so then you're only liable for one, right? Let's say you say, I won't eat bread. So then you're liable for one. I won't eat wheat bread, barley bread, or spelt bread. and then you ate all 3, now you're liable for 3. Okay, let's say someone says, I won't drink, and then you drink different kinds of drinks, you're only liable once. If you say, I won't drink wine, oil, and honey, and then you do, you're liable for each one. Let's say you say, I won't eat, and you ate things that are not edible, so then, or inedible, you are exempt because you said you won't eat, but again, like we said, eating dirt is not eating. But if he eats non-kosher, maybe he's exempt because that's inedible for us, or no, it's still food and therefore you are liable. Let's say a man says, my wife will be forbidden to me if I eat anything today, and then he eats non-kosher, his wife is forbidden to him. Okay, and we'll discuss all of these cases. Okay, so now the Gemara explains. If you say, I won't eat, and he only drinks, so then he's liable. Because drinking, we're going to see right now, drinking is like eating. So Daf 23, right, this is based on a verse about Maaser Sheni, which you eat in Jerusalem, and it says you can eat wine, right? Therefore, it shows that drinking equals eating. Or maybe it's talking about this food that had wine in it, so maybe that's not a proof. Another proof is that it says that wine, right, you can eat it, and therefore it shows that drinking is eating. Again, or maybe we're talking about something that's more solid that will make you drunk. Again, and then the Gemara says, well, we can actually learn from our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says, if you eat and drink, you're only liable 1 korban, because drinking equals eating. Okay, but let's say you say, I won't drink and I won't eat. And then again, that is valid because if you say, because eating isn't included in drinking, right? Meaning it goes the other way around, right? Only, right, if you say I won't eat, it includes drinking. But if you say I won't drink, that doesn't include eating. If you said I won't eat, and then you said I won't drink, so it shows that I won't eat didn't include I won't drink. We said that, again, let's say a person says, I'm not going to eat these 3 things. So the Gemara says, well, wait a minute, it depends on the case. If you have all of these 3 things in front of you, that's why you said, I'm not going to eat this, this, and this. Or maybe the case is that someone is pressuring him to drink these things, and that's why he said, I'm not going to drink it. Okay, let's say someone says, give me my wheat, my barley, and my spelt that I gave you last week. And the person says, what are you talking about? I swear I don't have anything of yours. So then he's only liable for 1 sacrifice because he put it all together. But if he says, I don't have your barley, your wheat, and your spelt, so then you're liable for each one. Okay, we said if you say I won't eat and you ate not kosher, you're exempt. But if you specified I won't eat non-kosher, then you're liable. But then remember we said, wait a minute, how is that a valid oath? We just said that it's already forbidden from Har Sinai. So it has to be, as we said before, you included something that was permissible, and then it would be valid. Okay, so now we have the concept of what's called stam, which means unspecified, versus mifurash, right? You're being very specific. Another concept is isur kolel. Isur kolel means like general, means that if you take something that is forbidden and something that is permissible, and you make one oath about them, so then it is valid, right? Kosher and non-kosher, then it is valid and it does work. Okay, Daf 24. Okay, if a person eats even a little bit, so then they already get lashes. And you need a shiur, right? Again, a kazayit, an olives amount, in order to be liable for the sacrifice, for the korban. Rabbi Shimon doesn't hold by this idea of isur kolel, putting permitted and forbidden things together. And therefore, we said that you're only liable for a korban, for a sacrifice, if the oath can be expressed in two ways. I will or I won't, right? I will eat this bread or I won't eat this bread. Or, that's one opinion, or when we say a person won't eat and then ate something he can't eat, so then it doesn't mean that we're talking about non-kosher. Maybe it's talking about literally inedible food, right? Like dirt. If a person already ate non-kosher and then takes an oath that they won't eat it, so then it must have meant to include these foods as well. But if he didn't, so then no. So now we have the concept of isur kolel, meaning including things that are permissible and prohibited. Now we have a concept of what's called isur mosif, adding to something that is prohibited. So now, and the way to understand what this means is, generally, an isur kolel is something on the person. I'm adding more things that are forbidden for me. But an isur mosif is about the object itself, right? So if you have something that is forbidden to eat, and then it becomes another forbidden thing, right? So let's say it chelev, which is like fat from a sacrifice, you're not allowed to eat it. But then if it stays overnight, it's called notar. It stays over, and now it is more forbidden, right? Even though it was forbidden in the first place. So that does work. So some people hold that isur mosif works, but not isur kolel, and others say that they both work, and there are different opinions in the Gemara. So then the Gemara likes to give, big cases. So a person can eat one kazayit, like one thing of meat, and be liable for 4 different sin offerings, chataot, and 1 asham offering. How? Right? The person was impure, and then he ate fat from the meat, which is forbidden, and it stayed overnight, so it was notar, and it was sanctified, it was hekdesh, and he ate it on Yom Kippur, right? So this is a way to see that one thing can become very, very, very asur. And the Gemara says that is valid. Then the Gemara asks, can you add another isur, right? If he said, I won't eat figs and chelev, right? So remember we said an isur kolel, you have something that's permitted and something that's forbidden. Maybe that would be a valid oath. So the Gemara says, no, that's not valid. Again, and the Gemara gives like 6 different reasons why that isn't valid, mostly because this case that we were given is only talking about the sacrifices that are similar and not about other things, and therefore the Gemara is not speaking about a case where you took that oath. Okay, Daf 25, the Mishnah tells us what is what's called a Shevuot bitui. Shevuot bitui is an oath. I will do something, I won't do something. So now the Mishnah tells us you can make an oath for yourself or for someone else, we'll explain in a minute, on things that have substance or that don't have substance. Again, we'll explain, right? So you can say, what does it mean for someone else? I will give my neighbor a cup of sugar, or I won't, or I did, or I didn't. what's something that doesn't have substance? I will sleep or I won't sleep, right? Sleep is not a thing. I can't give it or take it. Or I'm going to throw a rock into the sea. That doesn't have any benefit to anybody. Rabbi Ishmael says you're only liable for things that are in the future. I will or I won't. Rabbi Akiva says you're liable for the past as well. I did or I didn't. Okay, so now the Gemara says that there's differences between oaths and vows, right? A neder, which is a vow, we learned it in Masechet Nedarim, and this is a shvu'ah, right? Masechet Shevuot. Again, not to be confused with the holiday of Shavuot. Okay, so the Gemara says that there are differences, right? A vow, and there are some stringencies on both sides, right? A vow can take effect on things that are mitzvot. Remember, we said an oath cannot take effect on a mitzvah. A vow can. Right, so you can say, I won't sit in a sukkah. That's a valid vow, but not a valid oath. An oath can be on things that don't have substance, but a vow cannot. So each one has its strength. Right, you can't make an oath that I won't give charity, right? Because again, remember we said charity is a mitzvah, so you cannot take an oath that you won't give charity. Also, you cannot take an oath on something that's impossible, right? So you cannot take an oath that I'm not going to sleep for 3 days, right? That's not, the Gemara is going to say that's a shvuat shav. It's as if you didn't say it, and you get lashes for that because you shouldn't have taken God's name in vain, but it's not valid. But if you say I won't sleep, that is valid because it could mean I won't sleep now, I won't sleep tonight, right? It doesn't mean I will never sleep. So therefore, it is valid. Let's say a person says, I swear that person threw a rock in the sea. So one opinion is that it's valid because, as we're going to see right now, there are two opinions on what makes a valid oath. One opinion is, as we said before, that you can say it in the positive or in the negative, right? So I swear that person threw a rock also works if I say, I swear the person didn't throw the rock. Both of those are valid, so it works. But another opinion is it is invalid because I can't make it in the future, right? So one option is I have to be able to make it positive or negative. Another opinion is I have to be able to make it past and present. And past and future. And if I can't make it future, it's not valid even if I'm talking about the past, right? So I can't say, I swear that person is going to throw a rock into the river. That's not valid because I cannot control what a person does or doesn't do. Therefore, if I say it in the past, which it's not about control, it either happened or it didn't, it's still not a valid oath. That's one opinion. Okay, so again, the machlukit is within Rabbi Akiva. That again, remember Rabbi Akiva says oaths work in the past, but maybe only for oaths that can also work in the future, or not necessarily. If a person takes an oath that he's going to violate a mitzvah, and then he doesn't, he is exempt. And if he takes an oath to fulfill a mitzvah, but then he doesn't do it, he's also exempt, right? Again, remember we said you are really liable to do, not liable, you are bound to keep the mitzvot. So then what is this? What are we talking about? So again, remember we said you can't put an oath on a mitzvah. Okay, so now, if you don't need positive and negative, you definitely don't need past and future, right? So let's say a person says, I didn't eat. So the person says, swear to me that you didn't eat. And he says, amen, right? We're going to learn that if someone says, swear to me, and you say amen, that's as if you took an oath. And then let's say you lied. So then you have to bring a korban, right? The same thing with I didn't put on tefillin. But wait a minute, how does that work? So you're right, that one is a little bit different. You would get lashes because you lied, but you don't bring a sacrifice. Okay, Shvuat Shav. What's a Shvuat Shav? You're trying to change reality, right? You say, this is a refrigerator, right? This is not a refrigerator. So that would be what's called a Shvuat Shav. It has to be that at least 3 people know that what you're talking about is false and that you're lying, and therefore that would be, you would be liable for that. Let's say someone says, I swear that I know something about you. I have testimony for you, and that you really don't. So since he can't say, I don't have any testimony about you, so maybe it's not valid. The Gemara says, actually, no. Sorry. This is a separate case, which is called Shevuot Ha'idut, right? An oath of testimony. It has its own parameters, and therefore it doesn't fit in this category. So now we're going to see a different machloket. Shmuel says, if it can't be in the future, it's not liable for the past. And as we said, Shevuat Ha'idut, testimony, is a separate category. Rav says it doesn't matter, that even if you can't do it in the future, if you can do it in the past, it works. And therefore, this would still be a problematic oath, and you'd be liable for a sacrifice. Okay, the Gemara on Daf 26 says that, the verse says that you take an oath to lehara ulehativ, right? To do bad or good. And then there's a general statement to include other things as well. And then it also adds about the past, right? To do good is about the future. But Rabbi Kiva says it also comes to include the past, right? Again, Rabbi Ishmael says, no, it's only about the future and not the past. Why? Because Rabbi Ishmael expounds on klal uprat, right? I think we saw this either last week or the week before, that there are 2 different ways to interpret the same structure of a verse, right? The structure is there's a general statement, right? All oaths. Then there's a specific statement, and then there's a general statement. Now, there's 2 ways to interpret this pattern. One in Hebrew is called klal prat klal, which means generalization, specification, generalization. And then another way to understand it is called ribui miut ribui, right? Like an expansion, and then like a contraction, and then an expansion. And basically, we saw this last time. Basically, if you say klal uprat, so then it is more limiting. And if you say ribui umiut, right, which is expansion, it is more expansive. It includes more things, right? And therefore, there's a distinction on how you understand the verse. Let's say, right, if the oath comes before the action, so then it's valid, right? Again, I won't eat, and then you ate, so, right, that's a valid oath, which you'd be liable for. But it excludes a past oath, right? The action came first, therefore it would be invalid. If you thought something was true, right? I swear that, I don't know, I did the laundry yesterday, but really I made a mistake and I actually did it 2 days ago. And you took, right, if you take an oath, that's called ones, meaning you are not liable for it, because when you took the oath, you really thought that you were telling the truth and you would not be liable. Again, let's say you say, I won't eat wheat bread. And then you forgot that you took the vow and you thought you said, I will eat wheat bread, right? So then you are still liable because, right, even though you forgot, right? But if you forgot about the actual thing, so then you're not liable. Or yes, you're liable either way, and you need to remember, again, right, take your words very seriously, and you would be liable. Okay, let's say again, I won't eat this bread, and then it becomes dangerous if you don't eat it. I don't know, you get sick, and the only way, or you're so upset that you can't eat the bread, or like you really just wanted to eat it, and you became like so desperate, and then you eat it, and then you eat it. Now, but you forgot about the oath at the time when you ate it. So since you would have eaten it on purpose, so you're not liable for the fact that you ate it by accident, and you would not bring a sacrifice. Okay, now the Gemara talks about the oath itself. One opinion is that you have to say the oath verbally, you have to say it. Another opinion is even if you think it in your heart, then it is liable. But if you said you're going to say it, but then you didn't, so then that doesn't work. Okay, no, the Gemara says it's not a valid oath if you wanted to make something prohibited. And let's say you wanted to make, it's not valid if you wanted to make wheat bread forbidden, but you ended up saying, I won't eat barley. But if you wanted to forbid wheat bread and you just said, I'm not going to eat bread, so then it is valid. Okay, Daf 27, the Mishnah says, right, and we saw this already, but this is the source. If you take an oath to not do a mitzvah and then you did it, you're exempt. And if you take an oath to do a mitzvah and you didn't do it, you're also exempt, right? Logically, you should be liable, but we say, no, you are not liable, right? You can take an oath on something that is permissible, a reshut. Therefore, maybe for a mitzvah, it should be more so that it would be valid. And the Gemara says, no, right? Only things that are optional you can take an oath on, but a mitzvah you cannot take an oath on, and that is what we said previously. So now the Gemara explains that an oath, right, the oath that we've been talking about is based on a verse, and it's only for things that are permissible, but not for, or reshut, right, but not for a mitzvah, right? It says to either not do it or to do it. Either way, it is invalid. If a person takes an oath to do something bad to themselves and then they didn't, so you're liable, meaning it's a valid oath, right? The Gemara basically says you have the right to say whatever you want, and you could take an oath to harm yourself. That would be valid. If you take an oath to harm other people and you didn't, right? So then you're exempt because that is invalid. Again, you're not allowed to harm other people. If you take an oath to do good to others, that's a valid oath. And therefore, if you don't, you're liable. And again, this is based on the verse, to do bad or to do good, lehara ulehativ. The Gemara says maybe when it says to do bad, it doesn't mean bad, but it means I won't, right? And to do good means I will, right? And therefore, and as we said, right, you cannot take any one of these languages for a mitzvah. I will do a mitzvah. I won't do a mitzvah. That doesn't work. Okay. And then, right, the Gemara talks about, right, the verse includes that you can take an oath to do good for others. Therefore, maybe it also includes that you can take an oath on a mitzvah, right? And again, the Gemara says, no, that is not the case. Okay, last Mishnah for today. A person says, I won't eat this bread. And then he says, I won't eat it. And then he ate it. You're only liable for one. and all the things that we just mentioned in this whole hour. So that's called Shevuot bitui, right? An oath, an expression of an oath. And if you do it on purpose, right? If you know, right, I won't eat this bread, and then you eat the bread on purpose, you get lashes. If you do it by accident, you bring a korban olev yored, right? The sacrifice we mentioned at the beginning of the Masechet. Shvuat shav, right, which again is something impossible or nonsensical. If you do it on purpose, you get lashes. If you do it by accident, you're exempt. Okay, so now the Gemara explains, again, an oath can't be can't be valid on top of another oath, right? So again, like we said, I won't eat this bread, and he says, and I won't eat it. It's not like you took two oaths, it's only one. But if he said, I won't eat it, right? I won't eat it. That implies all of it. And then he says, I won't eat this loaf. And then he eats a kazait, so then he would be liable, right? Therefore, right, the second one does kind of exist on top of the first one. Another opinion is no, it doesn't. Let's say a person took multiple oaths. You're not liable for multiple sacrifices, right? But the oath still exists, like in the air. What does that mean? That if, and we haven't spoken about this yet, but if you go to a sage and it's called being shoel on an oath, right? You ask to nullify an oath that you took, right? I didn't mean to take it. I didn't know what I was saying. So if you get rid of one oath, so then it kind of like the next oath is kind of hanging in the air, and now it drops down, and now it becomes valid. So if you only ask to nullify one oath, the other one is still there. Excuse me. And the Gemara gives a case of a Nazir, right? Someone who takes upon themselves to be a Nazir, and they say, I'll be a Nazir, and I'll be a Nazir. So that means two Niziruyot, right? Twice, meaning 30 days times 2, which means 60 days. But if you get rid of one of the 30 days, the other 30 days comes into effect. And then the Gemara says, well, maybe that's a little bit different because those are two separate Nizir like sets, as opposed to with the bread, 1 and 2 are still linked, right? I won't eat it, or I won't eat any of it. Those are linked, and therefore, really, they could be seen as two very linked, as opposed to the Nazir case where they're separate. Okay, we are going to stop here for this week. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should continue on our learning, and I just want to wish everyone a Chodesh Tov. It's Rosh Chodesh still here. Sorry, it's not Rosh Chodesh here anymore, but it was today. And a Shabbat Shalom and a Chag Shavuot Sameach. I hope everyone has a wonderful Chag. And we have a few minutes, so I'm happy to open up to if anybody has any questions or any comments. I'm happy to answer anything.
Yeah, it's still Chodesh Tov here in the USA. Thank you.
Okay, so Chodesh Tov. Any questions, comments?
Just thank you for answering my question. Okay. I knew it was different, but again, it's also, they took an oath and it's a lie. So that's why I made the connection.
Yes. Yes, right. It's not put in the category that we were discussing because it's seen as a separate category. Yes. Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Okay. Rabbanit, you're feeling better than last week.
Baruch Hashem, thank you. Yes, I really rested up. I tried really to rest because last week was not good. So Thank you.
Stay well for a
Thank
fantastic
you.
Hag.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, everyone. And see you next week.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, everyone.
Thank you so much. Glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Thank you.